Hey everybody, I'm Clint Arthur, and I am so unbelievably excited to have with me today as my guest Dr. Michelle Golland. She is one of my favorite people in the world because she saved my relationship with my daughter, and you've seen her a million times on CNN and all over national news channels. And today we're going to talk about a very important topic, and that is really, is it okay to hate your kids sometimes? Dr. Golland came up with this idea, and I'm like, wow, I would love to know that, because sometimes I have found myself saying, I hate that kid, and I wonder, am I a bad parent? Am I a bad person?
Right.
What's
No,
the deal?
absolutely not. I think, one of the things that happens in our culture is these shifts in parenting, and we've been in a shift of parenting of, all loving, we have to be the best, perfect parents. That means we give them everything and are so nurturing. But, really, we are going to hate our children at times. I mean, they can be annoying. They can be frustrating. It is challenging being a parent. And, if you're a stay-at-home mom or a working mom or a dad working, staying at home, it doesn't matter. You still are human, and you have feelings and reactions to annoying behavior. And our children can do that.
So what do we do,
Yeah, I think, one of the things that we have to understand when we're feeling frustrated, parenting is challenging. We know that. But when we look at kids and developmentally, so, we all know about the terrible twos. When we look at different developmental stages, those stages are going to be inherently frustrating to us as parents, because our children are pushing against us to become independent, to discover themselves. Another big time of that is teenage years, right? They're really becoming independent. They're driving. They're creating their own identity. And as parents, we have to remember they don't want our identity. And they don't want the identity that we want for them. They want their own. So they're gonna do things that frustrate us. So there's gonna be these moments where, like me with my daughter, was holding the door shut at P.F. Chang's because she didn't want to eat there. She's 7. And I really wanted to kill her. And I was with a friend whose child was, of course, acting perfect. And, these moments there's a few things that goes on. We're embarrassed. We feel ashamed. We think we've totally screwed up, and now everyone has found out how bad we are as parents. So, but really, it's normal. She's 7. She's acting out her frustration and anger, and then there was a consequence. She didn't get stuff that she wanted at the aquarium that we went that day. So that's how you deal with frustration with your child. But there's another thing that's important, is looking at what's going on inside of us when we're frustrated with them. Are we overreacting, or is it just something that we need to sort of deal with our child?
What do we have to say to ourselves when we find ourselves hating our kids from time to time?
Well, one, I think it's accepting that we are allowed to be angry, and we are allowed to be frustrated. It's what we do with that anger and frustration. Me sitting there, screaming at Tova, or, prying her annoying sticky fingers off of the door. Okay, I did have to pry them a little, but I wasn't going to scream at her, although I wanted to. I just quietly said to her, you're not going to be getting a toy that you want unless you let go of this door. And that, she gave me the stink eye, and she let go of the door, and she stomped off a little. And, it's about boundaries. It's about me keeping my own adult anger and embarrassment and shame and all of that in check, and dealing with it. But there's another thing in looking at this that's really important is, we're all going to have fleeting moments, and even maybe hours, that we're really frustrated with our children. And let's face it, we annoy them. I know I annoy my children and frustrate them. And that's okay. They're allowed to have their feelings of anger and frustration at me. Like when I have to, go to work and they don't want me to. That's understandable. They have real feelings around that. So it's about them being free to express themselves too, in what is appropriate and normal given the circumstances. The one of the things that I think is important, and as a psychologist, I want to point out that can be sort of a larger red flag, is if we get into this point where we're chronically angry at at a child, a particular child, let's say, it's about understanding, is there something going, and this is not just fleeting. This is like, there's something wrong. I deeply don't like my child. That to me is a red flag about either yourself or something may be developmentally happening with your child that you're not aware of, or your expectations are too high for where they should be. So that you're starting to sort of chronically, let's say someone who has a 2-year-old who they're expecting should be, potty trained, should be doing these certain things that a 2-year-old may really not have the skill set yet to do. And so you're chronically angry and annoyed and frustrated at them. That's going to change your relationship over time for a long time. So that's about your adjustment. One of the things I want to share with you that we discovered about my own son, Asher, was there was a point he was around 4, that we were finding ourselves that it wasn't just, it's annoying, these things are frustrating, we have to deal with these behaviors, like his own frustration and tolerance, his own inability to sort of gauge emotional reactions. And I found myself, particularly because I was at home with him, chronically angry. And what ended up happening, we ended up having some testing done, and he had sensory motor issues. He actually had real developmental issues that needed to be addressed. He had fine motor skill deficit that was causing him to be chronically frustrated and angry because he had everything in his mind that he wanted to do it for, but his little tiny fingers weren't strong enough to do it. We had no idea. And he was in preschool, and we're pretty attuned parents, and I'm a psychologist, and, but we didn't see this piece that was so critical. He got occupational therapy, and his finger, we did all these finger exercises, and it changed him. I mean, it changed his level of frustration because he was actually able to do the things he wanted. So that's one of those things that I think as parents, if it's chronic, there may be really something else happening. And just addressing that, quite frankly, changed Asher's life because he started to be able to write, and all these things really flowed from that. And then I was less frustrated because he was less angry and agitated. So that's where really knowing yourself and your child is really key to even finding out that there may be other larger development issues that need to be addressed.
Okay, so what I'm seeing here is 2 things. Number one, that when you're angry with your kid and when you're hating your kid, that's an opportunity for you to grow and mature as a parent.
Yes.
Okay, that's an opportunity for you to really become a better parent.
Yes.
Okay, that's number one. And number 2, if you find yourself chronically angry with your kid, that may be a sign that there is some real problem, because a parent is not supposed to be chronically angry at their kid.
Yeah.
Is that what I'm hearing?
That is exactly what you're hearing. I mean, and if it isn't about them developmentally, then there's something going on in your life. Is there something happening in your world that you're not addressing? Or even within the household, the issues that are large in our culture right now, obviously economic stress, death of a parent, any transitional, passage that can be traumatic affects us as people, obviously, and affects us as parents, and affects our whole house.
There may be mold in the house.
Exactly. I mean, these are things that
Okay,
that you have to pay attention to.
So the whole premise that we started out with here is, I hate my kid. Is that okay? And I think what you're saying is, it's okay to hate your kid sometimes. But if you find yourself constantly hating your kid, then you have to start looking for the cause, because no, that is not normal.
Absolutely, Clint. That is absolutely right.
Wow, that's awesome.
It's true. It's true.